Okay, so in this video, or in this video set, what we're going to do is create this sword. So we're going to use a reference for proportions. We're going to, draw it out, block it in, and get some shape and put some detail into it. As you can see, it's nothing too elaborate. The end goal for me is to have a sword that I can take to my next tutorial, which will be texturing this sword. So yeah, I hope you find it useful. I've just changed my mat cap here, so I'm in the display in solid mode, and I've just gone to my mat cap and changed it from the default to a clay texture, because I think you can see it better. But yeah, other than that, everything else is covered. Okay, so I will talk to you when we start in a few moments. Okay, so if you've done one of these Blender, or one of my Blender tutorials before, then you've probably done this step, and feel free to skip to the next chapter. So what I've got here is Blender set up as its usual default navigation style, and I prefer not to use it. So I've just set up shortcut keys for my move, rotate, scale and select. So for move, I've right clicked and change the shortcut key, and that is G, and then rotate, right click, change shortcut key, and that's R, and then for scale it's right click, change shortcut, and it's S. And then for the selection mode, I've got mine set to the box select, so it's right click, change shortcut and W. So as I say, I'm going to be using those shortcuts throughout the video, so please set them up, otherwise you might get very confused when I press buttons and your machine behaves differently. Okay, so I'll get on with the video now, so I'll talk to you then. Okay, so let's get started. So what we want to do first is kind of block out our sword and get the proportions generally right. And I've just started with a new general scene here, and I've got my cube in the scene, and I'm just going to scale it down now to get the kind of hilt size that I want. So for that, if you press the N key, you'll get the object's properties up. So we've got its position, its rotation, its scale in terms of a percentage, and then its actual dimensions. So I want the dimensions to be about the size of a sword that I could hold in my hand, or a sword hilt. So for the Z axis, I'm going to go for about 10 inches. So I can just type 10 inches in. And for the X and the X may be 2 inches. I'm not, sold on these things. This is me getting it approximately right. And then the Y, let's make that 1 inch. So just type in 1 inch. There we go. And now our sword or our primitive has scaled right down. And that's perfect. And next I want to get in an image which is going to give me a guide to my proportions and shape. So to do that, we'll add in an image. So if I go to add image, it's here somewhere. Oh, I'm terrible with lists. I really can't see anything. Oh, I'm pointing at it. What a plonker. That's probably why I can't see it. If I go to reference, and then I have a directory that I've put my reference in, so let's go there, and then I'll double click on that and it'll bring it in, and it's going to come in massive. So I'm going to go to my front view. Actually, that looks all a bit wonky, doesn't it? So let me go to perspective again. Oh, okay. I don't know how I managed to get that in quite so wonky. Let's see what I did. So add image reference, let's pick my sword, and then I'll just zoom out and move around. It is wonky. Oh well, never mind, I'll straighten it out. So I've got on my rotations here, because I didn't hide the the N key. If you can't see it, just press N again. I've got an X and a Y rotate, so let's take that Y rotate off and let's put our X rotate to 90. There we go. Now it's straight. Crumbs. And actually I want to model this in the other direction. I've got a little rotation on there as well. So let's rotate it. So if I press the R key, I can start to rotate it, and you'll see my properties start to update over here. So I could just type it in here, 180. There we go. Okay, so now I've got my image in. I want to scale it down because I want the image to match my initial handle height. So we'll press the S key, and then just on the center piece or on the green mixer, we'll bring that right down, and then I'll move it with the G key so that the handle is overlapping with my image, with my primitive. So that's about there, but I can't really see it very well at the moment. So let's go to a transparent mode, the X-ray mode up here, and let's scale that up a little bit to make that work. So S, I use the green mixer until it's about right. Oops. And then where are we? G, and I'll move it upwards to try and line it up. There we go. So I also want it to be centered, so I'm just trying to center that up. And I think actually, even though my rotations are pretty good, I don't think my image is straight. So, well, I mean, it's a good job, because it's not a good job, but because I'm only using this as a scale to get my general proportions in, yeah, we should be okay. Right, so that's got our piece in, and now I want to block out the general shapes of the sword. So when we come back in, what we'll do is start to add some geometry to our initial primitive to, get the shape in there. So I will talk to you then. Okay, so now we're going to block in our shape, and it's good to get the general shapes in there first, even if there's no definition to that shape. And get the proportions right before you go too much further. When you're modeling, the lower poly the mesh is, the easier it is to change. So if you got to the end of your sword and you found out the blade was too short, or the hilt was too thin, or so on and so forth, it's much harder to change those proportions then than it is early in the process. So I like to block the shapes out first. So for that, then we're going to select our top polygon here. I'm in my box select mode, so you can either just click on it or drag your box like so. And what we want to do is detach this from the box. I want the handle and the hilt, handle and the cross piece rather, to be separated. There's no need for them to be absolutely joined together unless you have a specific kind of need in terms of morphs and such like for control. In general, I keep them separate because it lowers your poly count. I don't have to put extra bevels in to smooth out a transition between them. I don't have to do all sorts of things which just jacks up your geometry. So let's split this off. So if I right click on this, I get a little menu up, and down the bottom we have split, and the shortcut key for that is Y. So I'll split that off. and once that's split off, I can manipulate it independent of the handle of the rest of the model. So I'm going to press the S key to scale, and I'm going to use the green handle to push it a little bit out from the handle so it's a little wider, and then I use the red handle to drag it out to the width. So let's just hit the 1 key to see, because it's often difficult. I'm going to use this side as my general reference because I'm on the bit of a little bit of an angle. So let's just bring that down a little bit and take it back up a little bit and go back into 1. There we go. And once you've got your your width and height or width and breadth depth set, we're going to extrude it up to form a box. So over here we have various operation menus, and at the top is extrude, and I'm going to click extrude along normals because it's the one I always use, even if I don't need to sometimes, because it will extrude it along the normal of the polygon. The normal is the kind of direction that polygon is facing at 90 degrees to itself. So let's click in the viewport and drag that up until it's about the right size. There we go. Okay, so let's stop that by going to the selection tool, and we have our hilt and our cross piece, well, the general shapes. Let's turn off X-ray mode for the moment. Actually, I might go into like a material shade there, it's a bit easier to see. And then we're going to do the blade, and this time I want to copy our face, not what am I trying to say, not cut it, because I need this top face for the cross piece. Okay, so to duplicate a selection, so I've selected my top polygon here. If I press Shift and D, it will duplicate it, and you'll see then it allows you to kind of move it around. I'm just going to move it so it's either just below or preferably dead on, and then I'll use my scale tool, and I'm going to bring that in on the red handle and on the green handle, and then we'll add our thickness. So again, we'll extrude along normals, and I'm going to drag that up there. Now before I go too far, because I couldn't see it very well, I haven't scaled it very well. So let's go to selection first, and I want to select everything that's connected to that polygon. So I believe that's Control L. That should select all of your polygons that are directly connected to that face, and then we'll scale this some more. So I'm going to scale it down quite thinly because the blade by nature would be very thin. That's lovely. And then I'm going to select the top face only, and we'll move it up to the top. So what do we want? G, and I'm going to use the blue handle to drag it up to the top. And now we have a kind of a wooden sword, with a very blunt end. So I'm just going to drag that down. Perhaps I'll turn X-ray on. It's only for that polygon. That's ridiculous. Well, it's not helpful. And that is on. Let's pop it back like that. There we go. Now we can see the actual reference. I'll go to the front view, and then I'll just pan up until I can see the top, and I'll just take that up to just the tip. You'll notice that you could really see the slant on the reference now. I might correct that in a moment or two, or try and correct it, or correct it a little bit at least. But that's our basic shape. Let's turn X-ray off and go back to material shade, and that's what we've got, the most basic sword in the world. So we want to add some interesting shape to this. Obviously we want to make it look like an actual sword. make it look like you could, you know, poke somebody with it, and have them not just go, ow, stop it. So in the next video we're going to start to add some geometry in places and, you know, scale our pieces to start to get some shape on this. So I will talk to you in the next bit. Okay, so we want to set up a mirror here so that when we model on one side it transfers over to the other. So let's do that quickly. So in edit mode with my cube selected, I'm going to select the loop cut. Then I'm going to point at that horizontal edge across the blade, and then the same across the crosspiece and the same across the hilt. And that's going to create me a line straight down the centre which I can use as my midpoint. So now we need to delete half of this. So let's go to our front view with the 1 key on the numpad and turn to X-ray, and now I can select through. So I want to select one side and delete it. So in vertex mode I'm going to press W to go to box select, and then left click, drag out a box on one side of our sword, and then hit delete and select vertices. And then when we go back to our shaded mode we should see that we've got half. Now if I go back and add a modifier now and set up mirror, you'll see it's now copied itself over. And just one setting here to do, I've got on the x-axis, I just want to turn on clipping, and what that means is if I move anything over the midpoint it will stop it. It will just stop it dead in the middle. If clipping is off, you can move too far to the left or too far to the right and it can cross the geometry and gets confusing. So in general I have clipping turned on at that point in time. So that's set up our mirror, and you know, in the next video what we'll do is actually start to add some geometry to put some shape in. Okay, so let's turn on wireframe for the moment, and what we're going to do is start to cut up our mesh and move it around. So what I want is to add some more geometry over here to form the shape of this cross piece. So with the loop cut here, I'm going to point at one of these vertical lines and it will cut it in half, and then towards the center I'll do that again, and I want that twice more on that side and perhaps once more in there. So you'll notice that's done it on the other side, which saves us a job. And now if I go to select mode, we'll use the W key, I can left box click over that. I keep pressing that button and it hides my interface, it's driving me nuts. And let's rotate around and make sure I've got everything selected. And now I'm going to use the R key, sorry, the scale key, the S key, to just bring that in a bit. And then I use the blue to bring that down so it matches the front, matches the image. So you can see there that my top and my bottom is matching up. That's put my slopes either side pretty good, but this one needs work. So I'm going to go into edge mode and box select over that edge, and again I'm going to bring it down to match the image, and then I'll just come up the top a little bit and bring that in to match this kind of width. Doesn't have to be perfect, a little bit of imperfection is always good. So then this end piece I want to change as well, so I'm going to box click, select over that, and then use R to bring that in a bit, but not too far, not as far as that. I want it to have a little kind of a little bit to it. There we go. So that's happened the same on the other side, so everything's good. Let's go into the shaded mode to see that. So now we've got a nice symmetrical kind of hill. We need to add more geometry to that to make it right, but again, I'm blocking in shapes, doing it kind of big to small. First we blocked in the shape and the proportion, now we're blocking in some of the smaller shapes, and we'll go down and down and down as we go through these steps. Okay, so let's do the handle or the hill. I'll go back into wire mode, turn off X-ray mode. I'm just going to right click, drag box over the bottom there, and this I'm going to move up. I'm going to replace this kind of pommel at the bottom with another object, so I'll use W, no I won't, I'll use G to move that up to there, and then actually it could do with scaling in a bit. So let's go back to our selection mode with W. I'm going to box select over one side and use the move key G to bring that in. There we go. It looks like it might have a taper, and it looks like, you know, it might actually yeah, no, I'm not entirely sure, so I'm not going to put a taper in. You could if you wanted to. Okay, so again that's got a shape in. I think the width is perhaps a little much, but we'll have a look at that as we go. Okay, so the blade now, let's press 1 to get into our front view. So I want to start to form the point up here. So we'll go to our loop slice. I'll pop a loop slice in, and then immediately back to select mode, and I'll just select that and use G, and I'm going to move it upwards to about where the curve starts. There we go. And then I'll box select on this corner piece here, and I'm going to move that towards the middle. Not going to get it exactly on the middle yet, but you know, as I said, we're just putting in the block shapes. So let's go back to a shaded mode and have a look. Now it looks much more like a sword. Still a wooden sword, but it's a little bit closer. Right, so I said I was going to put this bit on down here, and we'll do that now. So let's go to a front view, so 1. I'm just going to zoom in and center in down there, and I'm going to use the add menu and add a cylinder, and then we're going to scale this right down. So over here we've got kind of our properties for it. I'm going to halve the edges because we'll probably subdivide at the end. The depth is miles off. Perhaps we want the depth to be kind of 2 inches, and the height obviously is way off. The radius is way off rather. We want that to be kind of 2 inches as well, I guess. Looking at it, actually 2 inches is probably a bit thick, so let's set the depth to 1 inch. That's more like it. So in terms of our alignment, we want it to face us, so we're going to have to rotate it in one way or another. So let's set the rotation on X to 90, and then we can start to adjust. So it's still too big, so the radius I put 2 inches, let's make it 1.5. Still too big, it's going to be 1, isn't it? So let's type 1 inch in. Whoops, undo. I've completely undone it. Never mind, we can always start that again. Let's do this again. Add, where are we? Cylinder. Going to rotate it 90 degrees. On 16 sides, I want 1 inch and 1 inch. And then we'll move that down. So my locations all need to be at 0 for my mirroring to work when we get to that part. So I'm just going to kind of position it in, and then I'll use the S key, sorry, the scale key, to just take that up a bit. There we go. Let's rotate around and have a look. Yeah, that's okay. That should do the job. So now we've got our really, basic shape. I'm going to hide my reference. That should be that one there. And now we can see it. And in the next video we'll start to add some rounded shape into the handle, so it's not kind of like holding a lump of wood. Okay, so I will talk to you. Okay, so let's do a bit of handle shaping, and for that I'm in edge mode, so press the 2 key and then click on one edge and then shift click on the other, so front to back. And I just want to scale these in, so let's press the S key and use the green handle just to take it in a little bit, not a lot. I'm just trying to get a curve on this front face. So there we go, somewhere along those lines. And then we want to bevel it. So for bevel, we press Control and B. It's B for Bravo. And you might move it around and find it doesn't do an awful lot. I find it's best to, if you see that little dotted line, is go to its origin and then move away from the polygon in that direction. See, so I'm just taking that somewhere to around there, and then I'll reselect those two edges or two new edges that I've just created, and we'll bevel again. So Control B, move to the face and then move in that direction, and when you get far enough away it will start to actually bevel, and then left click to drop it. So that's that one. That's good. We've got kind of a nice holdable shape now, as opposed to before, which was a little bit blocky. And of course up here we're all very blocky. So what I want to do, let's just go to mirror mode, transparency mode first, or if you prefer just wireframe, and I'm going to box select around these edges, if it'll let me. Oh, I'm on the wrong side of the mesh. See this dark side? You can't select it, that's your mirror. You have to do it on the slightly lighter side. So I'm going to select that one. Whoops. Let's go to select mode first. W. So it's box select over there, and then with shift held down I'm going to box select over its compatriot there, and then Control B to bevel. And now I need to move to try and find where it's going to go from. No, it's dropped it. Control B, there we go. So again, I'm kind of starting off at where I've selected and then moving parallel to it, moving in that direction. And I'm just going to keep going out and click in, and then I'll do the same for all these other edges. So let's hit W to make sure we're in selection mode. I'm going to select around here. Just make sure I've got the other end. It doesn't look like I had the whole thing selected in the first place. Right, we do need to be in X-ray mode. Now I want to select around all of those. I need to do it individually. So shift select around those edges. Control B, move close, and then move away. There we go. Let's go in that direction. Okay, so let's select over there. Control B, move in a direction. Similarly on this one, Control and B, and then move to get it to work. There we go. Now this one is a bit awkward because I can't really box select it because it's too close to other things. So I'm just going to select an edge and then go to select and then select loops, edge loop, and it will select the loop round. And then we'll bevel again, Control B, and then move our mouse until it actually moves. Don't want much of one on this, just enough. There we go. Okay, let's go back to our model mode, and now we have a slightly more refined sword. I do want to bevel a few more things, so let's bevel down here first. So I'm going to select these two edges on the front and the back of the pommel, and then we'll go to edge, not edge, sorry, select and select loops and edges, and then we'll bevel those. So it's Control B and then find our direction. There it is. Sometimes it's a little bit crazy and doesn't really want to behave, which it doesn't appear to at the minute. In that case, if you click down, it may be that that's got some geometry that I'm not aware of. Let me set this to 2. Yeah, it's kind of doing it, but it's not. Okay, well, let's deal with that. So just Control Z a couple of times. So if I've got some duplicated geometry down here which is preventing it from beveling properly, then I need to do a fix, but I'm not sure that's true. So I'm going to go to edge for faces first and select my face. So let's go to W and select faces front and back. There we go. And this time I want inset. So if I click on inset and then drag my piece, it's not really behaving as I kind of would expect it to. I'd expect it to be, you know, just insetting and just working. So perhaps it is messed up. So what I'm going to do is delete that face. And then we're going to have a look at these edges. So let's go to edge mode. I'm going to select this here. I'm going to go back to select mode so I come out of that inset mode and select the loops. So it's select and edge loops. I'm going to use the F key to fill those holes with a polygon. And now if I go to polygon mode, I'm going to try that inset again. And it's still doing it. Yes, frustrating. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find out between videos, so that you don't have to watch me trying to figure it out, what's going on down here, because I'm not convinced it's right. So give me a moment or two and I'll be back and we'll see what's happened. Okay, so I can't find anything really particularly wrong with this. What I did do was added in a new cylinder just to start from scratch, and then on that cylinder I selected my faces and used inset. There we go, and brought that in, and it kind of behaves a little bit weirdly. If I do that, yeah, no, it's behaving much better, but that doesn't get around what we've got. So let me just click W to go into edit mode, and then I'm just going to press L, which connects all my link geometry there, and delete and faces to get rid of that. But there is a way around this. There's always a way around things. So I want to change this anyway. I want to change the shape. I want to put an inset into it. So before I do my bevel, what I'm going to do is select both my faces, and I'm going to press the inset and then just take it in a little bit, and I'm going to set that value to 0 so it precisely matches the original shape, which is the circle, which is what we want. And then I'm going to use S to scale and the green handle to bring that in. And now I've got a perfect little inset. And once I've done that, I'm going to use extrude, and we're going to just extrude that in a bit, just to give it a little bit of an edge. That's done it twice there, so yeah, I don't really want it to do it twice, but never mind. I'll just delete out the extra geometry. So I'm going to go to edge mode and select. Now loop selecting, there's a quicker way of doing it. Let me press the period key on the numpad to focus in. So if I press the Alt key and click on an edge, it will then select my loop, and I can use delete and just dissolve my edges. There we go. I'll do it on the other side as well. So it's Alt click to select your loop, delete, and dissolve edges. There we go. Now if I use L, whoops, not L, Alt and click on that edge on the outside, I'll select the loop, and then Shift Alt and select the loop on the other side. We should have a better result. Fingers crossed. So Control B to bevel, and then I'm going to move my thingy around to do the job, and it's not really doing what I want it to, but I'm going to force it anyway. So I'm going to go back to edge mode. I'm in edge mode, so back to select with W, Alt and select my loop, Shift Alt and select the loop on the other side, and then we use the scale key to bring that in. That's more the kind of shape I was looking for. Okay, so let's bevel this inner line here. So it's Alt, select the line, and then we'll do the other side, Shift Alt and select the line, Control B to bevel, and I'll move this around until I get some sort of reaction, and I'll just give it a tiny little bevel there. Nothing too much, just enough to take the flatness and take the angle out of the bend. Okay, so that was a little bit of quick troubleshooting. It's super annoying when it happens, but it happens a lot, you know, and that's not just because I'm incompetent. It's just life, you know, that's how it works. Okay, so what else do we need to do? We need to do a little bit more shaping on our crosspiece here. So let's do that now. So I want another bevel. So I'm going to press Alt and click, and then Shift Alt and click on my lines, and nothing's happening. So let's move to select and just make sure I've got nothing selected. And nothing's happening because I was on the wrong side of the mesh. So Alt, select an edge, Shift Alt, select, Shift Alt, select, and then one last edge line there, Shift Alt and select. And here I'm going to bevel this to give it some roundness. So Control B, I'm going to move to that point and then move my mouse out until it does something. There we go. So again, it's not really doing exactly what I want it to do, but it's not far off, and you know, we'll deal with that a little bit now. Okay, so it's not rounding off as much as I wanted it to, much like this wasn't, but that's okay, we can handle that. So I'm going to go to W again to go into select mode, and then I'm going to reselect those loops. So Alt W, Alt click, Shift Alt click, Shift Alt click, and Shift Alt click, and then I'm going to use scale again and bring it in on the green, and that will start to give me some of the shape that I'm looking for. Doesn't want to be much, you know, but it wanted to be more than it was giving me. So yeah, that's what we do. Okay, so yes, it's starting to look a bit like what we want it to. I just want to deal this end piece here. So let's go to poly mode or face mode. I'm going to select this end and I'm going to extrude along the normal. Just grab that and move it out. Then I'm going to use S, and this time I'll use the middle area to give it a complete select around and just take that down a bit. Okay, so there's a couple of things to tidy up, but the bottom of our sword is looking pretty much like the reference. The top of the sword is looking less so, so we're going to start to look into that. Yeah, so I'll talk to you in the next section. Okay, so let's have a look at the blade then. And it's a bit thick at the moment, but that's because I'm going to make it thinner in places and not in others. And that's part of the difficulty of this. It looks like a simple shape, but it's much more complicated than it looks. So first of all, what I want to do is have a look at my reference. And if I'm looking at this reference, you can see there's like a furrow in there. And this one has a similar kind of furrow, but it's actually got a block on the bottom and a flat bit going down with the furrow in it. So let's put some geometry in so that we can put the at least the flat bit in. And for that I'm going to use the slice tool to start with, and then I'm going to delete some stuff out. So let's use our cut, and we're going to cut vertically down the blade. And then I don't want any of this up here, so I'm going to get rid of it. So let's go to select, press W. I'm going to select these top edges here. This one going across and the one going down the other side. You see it's all starting to pinch and go a bit weird up the top, and I don't want that, so let's dissolve these edges. So it's right click, delete, not right click, it's just delete, and dissolve edges. There we go. And now I'm going to redirect the flow of these polygons. So let me center up a bit. So at the moment everything's going straight up the sword. That's why when we cut it, it went across the top. But I'm going to redirect the flow so it goes around itself. And we use the cut tool for that, and that's the K key. And then I'm going to click on the top of this edge and then move to my middle point and click, and then press enter, and that will cut that. And this is an argument for using mirror on Z as well, or Y rather. So let me just minimize that. So let me undo, and I'm going to turn mirror on Y, and now we use K again. Whoops, that's H. Point there, go up my sword model, click to put a point down, enter to finish, and that should go on both sides. But it's not going on either side anymore. Okay, so let's take Y off, and I'm just going to have to do it by eye. So let's click K, click, take it up, pop your point down and press enter. Now I'd prefer these to be at the same height, but they're not currently, or they're potentially not. So I'm going to select them both and then have a look to see what we're looking at. So I just want to flatten them. Does it give me anything in my properties? Let's press N. Okay, so if I select that one, it tells me it's at that position, and that one is at that position. So if I want them both to be at this position, I can copy this value and then just paste it into the other side. And now they should both be at the same height. Lovely, that's good. Now this gives us the opportunity now to squeeze our blade a bit to give it some sharpness. So I'm going to go to poly mode and then select all the polygons around the edge. I've only got 3 here, so it's not going to be too arduous. And then I'll use the R key, the S key. I have to keep doing that, I do apologise. Just to squeeze those down. I'm not going to cross over, I'm going to get real close, but not, you know, so close that it's 0. Whoops, that's the wrong handle. There we go. So now we have a an actual sword kind of blade shape. It's not finished by any means, but we'll get there as we go. The shading looks a bit odd. Let's go to whoops, let's turn off the transparent to start with and have a look. There we go. So we've got some issues where, you know, things are coming together and not looking quite right. That's fine, we'll deal with those as we go along. And we also need to change the shape up here a little, but again, that's fine, we'll do it as we go. Okay, so next then, what we're going to do next? Well, we're going to do some more shaping on the blade, because the blade needs more work. You know, we haven't finished by any means. So in the next video, we're going to add some more geometry, and we're going to start to shape it so it's got a nice kind of curve at the top. It's not just kind of angular and angry. So I'll talk to you. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Now, I want to put a curve into the top of this blade because it's a bit sharp at the minute. I know swords are supposed to be sharp, but you know, I want a curve. So let's have a work on that. So I'm going to use loop cut, and I'm going to point at this edge. Now you'll notice that it only highlights one edge, and that's because our polyflow is broken. The blender doesn't know which way it's going, because we've got some n-gons, we've got some things that aren't quite right, and then it's only going to go in this direction. It's only going to go across this one polygon. That's fine, we'll fix that later, but for the moment just click to set that down, and then we'll go to select mode and select it. Now to get a curve out of this I need to move it up, so we use G, and I'll grab the gizmo and move it upwards, and I'm going to move it outwards as well. Now what I'm trying to do is get these lines kind of the same length, so let's use that mixer. There we go. And just while I think about it, I'm going to move that one a little bit closer. There we go. Okay, so when you've got this one where you want it, let me just zoom in a little bit more to just select that one. We can use bevel, so it's Control B, and then just pull it out until it starts to curve. You might find that if you've only got one bevel set, one bevel curve, one split set, that yours looks flat at the moment, but don't worry about that. When you click, you'll get this little bevel up, and you know, now we can set the curve number. So it's segments, so I've got mine set to 5. I think I'm perhaps going to set it to 5 seems fine. I didn't see any difference between 5 and 6. If I go to 4, yeah, there's not much difference there either. So that's quite nice, I like that. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Okay, so that's got our curve in, but it's also, you know, made our n-gon much worse. But you know, it's something we'll fix in the future. Now I'm a little bit unhappy about where that happened, so actually I'm going to undo it. So Control Z, and it wasn't stretching as far in this direction as I wanted to, so I'm going to set that up a little bit. I don't mind it not reaching as far down here, but up towards the tip I want it definitely to reach that tip. So let's Control B again and draw it out, and again I'm not quite reaching the tip, but I am reaching the bottom. That's really annoying. So this time I'll right click to stop it, and then I'm going to move this up and closer, and then Control B, draw it out, and that's much better. Okay, so when I click now, because the bevel's a little longer, I think this is going to need 5, if not 6. There we go. Okay, so we've got kind of a nice rounded shape on our sword tip now, so I'm happy about that. And when we come back, we're going to just do a little bit of shaping and a little bit of fixing. So I will talk to you then. Okay, so I've noticed that if I do what I'm going to do next, I'm going to have to do it on the front and the back. So I'm going to set up the Y mirroring. So for that I need to delete one side of the mesh, front or back, so we need to split it. So let's deselect everything and then use our split tool, and I want to split front to back on the blade, and I also want to split front to back on the cross piece. I need to join those up, and I should have it split on the no, I don't have it split on there. Okay, we'll need to do that as well then. Okay, so because we've got an end gun on this end, I need to join those up. So let's go and use the knife tool. I'll use K and then just grab that and pop it underneath, and then press enter. There we go. So now I can delete half my mesh, and I'm going to delete this half, and this might be a little bit tricky in terms of selection, so let's do this bit by bit. Let's get to a side view. I just want to select something first, so let's go to W to select mode, and then I'll use the 2 key. It's this side. Okay. Sorry, my brain is clearly failing me. I want to select all of the bits on the blade. Let's do this bit by bit, shall we? If I press the period key, it will focus for me, so that should do the job. So I need to select just a little bit further because I've got this really narrow edge here. So if we go to selection, we should find select grow somewhere. Select more or less. I'll select more, and it will expand by 1 polygon. Then I'll delete it, and I'll delete faces, and now I've just got a front, and now we should do our bottom piece. So I'll click on a thing and press period to zoom in. That should make life easier. If I click on this piece and delete it, I can now select these two and do the loop. So Alt and click to select the loop and delete that out. Now I think I can do another loop, so Alt and click and delete that, and then I just, oops, no, it didn't loop in both, never mind. So actually, yeah, I'm a foolish man. I'll just undo till I get to there, because I just use my grow, of course I can. So select more, control numpad plus this is, so I'll do that once, and then I'll use the plus key on the numpad, which isn't actually working. Control plus, there we go, I didn't hit the control key, and let's delete those faces. Okay, so now I'll go to the handle, which will be fairly straightforward. It's just those there, and delete and faces. And then if I select this middle piece, and use Control and numpad plus. I can select all of that then and delete it. Faces. There we go. Okay, so this bit down here I've probably got a bit of an issue with, so I'm going to fix that now. So first of all I need to cut this piece out. So we use the K key. I just want to split it top to bottom and then press enter, and then I'll delete one side out. Now which is the side I need to delete? It's this side. So let's delete that one, and as I delete it you'll notice that it's still there, but it's not. It was masking the mirror earlier, and you know I'd spaced it, so now I'm fixing it. So for this one I'm going to select the loop at the top first, so alt click and delete, dissolve those faces or delete those faces, alt click and delete faces, and now I can select anywhere on here and use Control and plus until it stops selecting, and I can delete those too. Okay, so I've got the polygons here I don't actually need, so let's delete that as well. Oops, I meant faces, delete faces, there we go, that's better. And now if I go to my modifier tab and turn on Y, you see I've got both sides now. So I'm only actually modelling quarter of the sword now instead of half. Makes life even easier. Okay, so that's setting up mirror Y. In the next one we're going to come in and we're going to do some work up here to prevent these from being a massive engon. So I'll talk to you then. Okay, so what we have down here is many more edges than we have here, and I want to match that up a little bit. I can't really see what's going on at the minute, so what I'm going to do is add a cut in here. So let's use the K key, and somewhere around the middle I'm going to draw across to the middle. Whoops, I'm on the wrong side. There we go. And then I'm going to press enter, and then we're going to move that point out a little bit. Where's my vertex? There it is. So I'll just use G and use my green mixer to move those out. Now I can now connect that to there. It's kind of nearest sensible vertex. So let's use K, and I'll select that vertex and move it over, and then press enter. And now we've got two engons, which actually I seem to have a bit too much up here. Let me take some of this out. Let's go to edge. Let's press full stop to focus on the numpad. Yeah, looks like I've gone a bit mad at one point in time. So let's delete and dissolve that one out. Dissolve edges. There we go. Okay, so I need to repeat that process all the way down essentially. Now I can guess at it, or I can cheat a bit. So let's just zoom in and try and estimate how many I've got down here. So that's 2. So I'm just right clicking over here and getting the selection down, and I may even actually delete some because we might have too many. Okay, well let's use K. So K, going to start off in the center of the blade, move out, and then connect up to a vertex. Would help if I didn't have that little thing in the way there, but I do, so tough for me anyway. There we go, and enter. So now I've got another one and it's going right across, that's good. And then I'm going to zoom in and find the next one. A little bit fiddly this, I could have done this a better way, I do apologise. So let's cut. Would help if my monitor wasn't so dusty, I wouldn't be mistaking dust for edges. So I've got one down there and we use K. So I'll click on this end, click over to my blade sort of ridge and then into the middle and then enter. Now you almost certainly don't want to watch me do this all the way, so what I'll do is I'll speed this video up in a moment, but this is essentially the process. So let's repeat that just one last time before I speed up. So that's one, into there and into the middle and then press enter. Okay, so I've got a kind of a shape here. It's not as smooth as I'd like, so I'm going to adjust it a little bit. So with vertices, I'm just going to first of all adjust down here. I'm just using the G key to move some of these to at least try and match the curve of the outside blade. I see I've managed to put an extra vertex in there. Let's delete that out. Dissolve vertex. Sure, I'm being particularly successful here. There we go. That's a bit better. Okay, so I've also got a little bit of oddness going on with the side of the blade, but I think I'm going to have to leave that for now. The last thing I want to do, let's focus in with the full stop key, is just take this down a bit just to smooth out the transition so it doesn't, you know, have too much of an angle on it. There we go. Okay, so that's cleaning up the top of the blade, and because we mirrored it, it's happened on all sides, so that's terrific. Let's move this one up just for fun. There we go. And yeah, we need to put a groove in this now, so we'll do that in the next little video. Okay, so I'm going to select this face here. I'm in face mode, so to get to that you just either click there or press the 3 key on your keyboard, and now we're going to put a groove in. There's a couple of ways we can do this, but I'm going to use inset to start with. So let's insert faces, click on the handle and pull, and just adjust it so that it's just nicely inside. I haven't noticed it, I haven't mentioned it before, but down here you get tool properties. So I'm on insert faces, so it says insert faces, and if you click on it you get some options, so you can use these to really, you know, refine your maneuvers. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to go to the extrude tool. I'm just going to grab my handle and pull it until it goes in a little bit. I don't want to go too far. I definitely don't want to be going beyond halfway, because if I go beyond halfway, it's just going to cut through the mirror. Okay, so then we'll go to select mode, and you notice I have 4 grooves at the minute. I've got one on each side, one front to back, and I don't want that at all. So I'm going to select these two faces and hit delete and faces, and now we can close that gap up. So you remember earlier on when we set up the mirror we added clipping. That's where this comes in handy. So if I go to my edge there, select that edge, I need to select the top edge. Let's press to focus, press the period to focus. I need to select that edge as well, and I should have one down the bottom too. It's getting awkward. There it is. So that one as well, and then when I press G to move it, if I move it beyond the center it just stops, and that's what clipping does for you. So what it's doing is just, you know, closing off that face. So let's have a look what we've got. I seem to have something I wasn't expecting, but we'll soon see about that. Okay, so I've got a line here which I definitely wasn't expecting, so I'm going to dissolve it. So it's right click, not right click, just press the delete key and then dissolve that edge. There we go. And now we have a nice groove down the middle of our sword, and we can refine it a little bit if we want to. I think it's perhaps too far down, so I'm going to go to poly or face select and select that bottom piece and move it up. There we go. And I'm going to select the side piece and move it in because I think it's too thick. There we go. If you want to give it some shape, we could select the middle edge and move that up, just so that it's got that kind of groove, kind of shape to it. If you wanted to smooth that out, you're more than welcome to, but in this case you are going to add some edges and geometry here which you'll have to connect up and you know, create triangles for. Okay, so that's put the groove in. There's one more thing I would normally do for that, and that's to put a small bevel around it. So on edge mode I'm going to select the top or the side at the top and the bottom piece, and then Control and B. Now I need to move my tool till it bevels. There we go. And this time I'll perhaps give it 2, just to be generous. Okay, so W. We have what basically looks like a sword now. It may not be completely refined, it may be too high or too low for your requirements, but that's it. And all I really need to do now to finalise it is to collapse my modifier. So I want to go on to UV this, which I'm going to do in a second video, because you know the UVing is very much tied to the painting process. So I'm going to UV and paint it in a whole new section. So let's just collapse this and see what we've got. So click down there. Actually, I perhaps need to be in object mode now, and apply. And now my sword is whole. Let's go into a better view to have a look at it, maybe even the rendered view, and there we go. We have a sword. I thought it was empty at the back there for the minute, but it's just dark. Okay, so yes, we'll refine this a little bit in the next step, in terms of, you know, giving it a UV map to enable us to paint it in a nice way. So I'll talk to you then.